And thanks so much for investing some time with us this morning for another session of Autosoft Insights. And like Zach stated, today's session is going to be focused on Autosoft's cashiering module. And we're going to be focusing primarily on the three functionalities that you see here. Your cash receipts, which enables you to receipt any sort of money coming into the dealership, whether it be down payments, vehicle deposits, payments towards accounts receivable, also being able to receipt parts counter tickets and service repair orders. So we're going to be focused on those three types of transactions today within the cashiering module.
Michael, I
Now,
think it would be a good time to figure out who on this webinar has actually used the Cashier module or is currently using it. So if it's okay with you, I'd like to launch a poll just to gauge from our audience who has used this before.
sure.
So on your screen, you're going to see a question, simple one question here on if you're using the Autosoft Cashiering module in your dealership. So go ahead and submit your answer. We'll give it just a second to populate there. Okay, so a lot of you have been using this. Right now, we're about 80% of you are using it, 20% no, haven't used it yet. So let me ask a question to those that are using it. I'm actually going to put another question up. I want to know what you're using it for. So let me launch this one here. So again, those who are using this cashiering module are using it for repair orders, for parts tickets, for cash receipts, or for all transaction types. So far, the majority for all transaction types. A lot of you for cash receipts. Given another 5 seconds or so. Not too many for parts tickets. But I think all transaction types is winning. All right. Hopefully, Michael and Brittany, that'll give you a little bit more of an understanding of where we are with the audience here on how they're using this module. So I'm going to go ahead and close that poll, but that's really helpful to know that 44% of you are using it for all transaction types. So that's great. Hopefully you'll take something away from this webinar on using it better. So go ahead, Michael, take that away.
All right. Thanks again, Zach. So before you start using Cashier, if you've never used Cashier before, one of the things you're going to want to do is under cash receipts, you're going to want to go to the system setup section here. And the system setup is where you're going to be able to dictate all of the different GL accounts that money is going to be pinned to that gets posted through the cashiering module. This is where you'd also be able to set up any of the credit cards that you accept at the dealership. You're also going to be able to control your repair order copy counts. So how many physical copies of the repair order do you want to have print once that repair order gets receipted through Cashier? This is also where you can control if whenever you generate your deposit slip, you want cash to be included on that in addition to your checks. And then under the credit card fee section here, you can set up any sort of credit card fees that you may want to assess for your credit card transactions. And this is also where you'd be able to dictate the general ledger account that those credit card fees are going to be posted to. But before we leave the setup screen here, I'm going to defer to my colleague, Brittany. Brittany, do you have any recommendations or best practices for how users should set these up or what information they should be looking for?
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. So one of the best practices that I would always advise when I was a trainer is for your cash on hand versus your cash sales. It's nice to have those as two separate accounts. So for example, your cash on hand, so in our example here is our 201. So any cash receipt that Mike will go through and he'll do throughout the presentation, that's going to debit that account. Whereas any repair order or counter ticket, if it's cash or check that we process, it's going to debit the 225 account. So then that gives you the separation to say, okay, this money in my 201 has come from my actual cash receipts. This money in my 225 has come from my repair orders and my counter ticket. So my fixed ops operation portion of this. And then at the end, you can always move your money from your cash sales directly into your 201. So you can see that your 201 balance ultimately is what you're going to take to the bank, whether it's the money you're physically depositing, if you have a check reader. So you'll see that, okay, overall, I'm going to deposit this $10,000. And this makes up any of my receipts that I processed from a down payment, payment on accounts, and also my parts and service money collected from the business the day before. Another one for credit cards, you can see there are instances where some dealers really like to have it still go to the same cash sales account just because that money is tracked in there. And then in other cases, some will like to put it to a receivable so they can track it through the receivable. So that one I would say is preference, but neither option is a bad option to have. It's just the way that you like to see that information and how you reconcile those clearing accounts. But my biggest one would always be to have a separate cash on hand one versus a cash sale. So you can make sure that those are clearing out to zero daily, and you know that that money is being appropriately accounted for.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brittany.
You're welcome.
So what we're going to do first is we're going to walk through how a repair order would be cashed out utilizing Cashier. But rather than starting in Cashier, we're actually going to head over to service and send that repair order over to the cashiering module. So what I'm going to do on the service side in order to get that repair order over to Cashier is I'll start off here in my review and print screen. I'll be able to grab a repair order right here from the list. And I'll click on print down here. And at this point, I'm going to select my invoice RO option. Now, depending on how things work at your dealership, you do have the capability to print the customer copy of the repair order at this point in time. So if maybe your advisors aren't the ones accepting the money, but they're wanting to print the customer copy, give it to them and walk them to the cashier's window, you have that capability. But for today, we're going to invoice that repair order over to Cashier. And then the cashier, whoever's going to be receiving the payment, will be able to go into Cashier and come right to repair orders. And then this is where they're going to see the list and they'll be able to access all of those repair orders that have been invoiced over from service. And so we'll notice the status here says Cashier. We'll be able to select the repair order. And now this is where we can dictate how the customer plans on paying. So we have the option of choosing between cash, check, or charge. In this case, you can see if the customer's paying via credit card, we already have that credit card fee assessed. And that is something that with the proper permissions can be removed. So we can also have a split payment incorporated as well. So if you have a customer that is paying a portion of their bill in cash and putting the rest on a credit card, for example, you have the ability to split the payment up to 3 different payment methods right here. Also, from a credit card standpoint, depending on how the customer is paying their bill with credit cards, you can actually split the bill out on 3 separate cards if necessary. In this case, we're going to keep it simple and we're just going to go over to check. So if my customer's paying via check, it's automatically going to pre-populate the dollar amount. All I need to do is input the number of the check that the customer's giving us. I'll click on print and click OK. Again, I can print my customer copy here along with any of those other physical copies that I've set up within the cashiering settings. And then that is going to accept the payment. So at this point in time, once I've accepted the payment, now that's also going to show within my daily summary. So when I go to cash receipts and I go to the list, this is going to show me all of the transactions that have been collected in Cashier over the course of the day. So this is where I'll be able to see all of the money that's come in, whether it be for repair orders, parts tickets, vehicle down payments, and it shows whether it's cash, whether it's a check, or whether it's a charge. Now, at the end of the day or at the beginning of the day, whenever I go to do my daily summary, I can simply print that right from here. And within Cashier, you can actually have up to 35 different cashiers. So you have 1 through 9, and you have A through Z in the alphabet. So we make it very easy to discern who's taken what money in over the course of the day. And so you can run that daily summary per individual, or you can run it for the entire operation. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And that's going to print a PDF, and that's going to show me again all of the money that's been taken in over the course of the day. So that's going to show all of my checks, all of my cash money, and all of my credit card charges. So it summarizes everything for me. And you're also going to be able to print your deposit slip from here. So like Brittany was talking about, the deposit slip is something that you can generate, and here's where you'd be able to dictate the date range of the checks that you want to incorporate into your deposit slip. So we're going to go ahead and modify this to cover the last day. It's going to now show all of the checks that have been generated or have been accepted over the last 2 days. We'll be able to print this. And again, this is something to where I can also include cash in my deposit slip if I want to. In this case, I'm only incorporating my checks, but if I did want to include those cash payments, I could also incorporate them here into my deposit. So this is going to print my deposit slip for me that I can take to the bank with me. And now what we're going to do is we're going to walk through the process of generating a cash receipt. And the first example that we're going to use is down payment on a vehicle. So whenever I go into customer receipts here, what I can actually do is if I go to the list and I come over to car deals, this is going to show me a list of any deals that have been marked as finished over in sales. So when they get marked as finished, they come over to accounting. Prior to being posted, this is where I'd be able to come in and I would be able to select one of the deals from this list in order to apply a down payment. Or if the customer was paying for the vehicle entirely in cash, this is where I'd be able to do that. So I'll go ahead and I'll select this deal as an example. So it brings over the customer's name, it brings over all the vehicle information. And just like before, now we can select how the customer is putting money down on their vehicle. So in this case, we're just going to say that it's cash, and we're going to say that he's putting $1,000 down. So now at this point, it's automatically going to default the general ledger account to my vehicle accounts receivable that I have set up. And then at this point, I'll just input my stock number, in this case as the control. I can add a note here. And then it's automatically going to default the credit amount to the $1,000 down payment. And at this point in time, when I click on print, this is where I can actually generate a copy of the receipt. Or if I don't want to print a physical copy, I can select the paperless option here. And then that's what's going to generate the cash receipt for that customer's down payment on their vehicle. Now, the next option that we're going to walk through is whenever you have an accounts receivable customer that is wanting to make a payment against their accounts receivable account. And I'm going to rely on my assistant Brittany here to help us out with that example. But the first thing I'm going to do for us is I'm going to go and I'm going to select the account right here from our list. So this is where, again, just like being able to select from a car deal, I have the ability to come in and access the AR customer database. So whenever I pull up an AR account, it's going to bring over all of their information. Of course, I could just input the account number right here in the account field, and it'll pre-populate everything the same as whenever I select it from the list. But down here, it's going to show the 2 open invoices associated with that customer's account. So Brittany, if you can help me, what would be the best way to apply the payment to this AR account?
All right, so say you're applying payment to your first invoice that you have that's for $295.78. So let's go ahead and select how this customer is paying. So if you want to enter over or click through, yep. So it's $295.78, I want to say. All right, and then enter your check amount. And so you can see as when Mike made the selection of how the customer is paying, that detail down below clears. So go ahead and enter. And then now we can start to see where our transaction builds. Go ahead and enter one more time so we can get to there. So as soon as you get to that control, this screen is going to pop up and display. So this is only if a customer is set up to be detail forward. So you can see now we have the option to select which invoices we're making that payment for. So since our payment that we have to apply is the $295.78, we're going to go ahead and select that option. And then that shows our total selected matches our total to apply, and we're going to hit OK. And then that would process that. So what this would do, go ahead and what that's going to do is when we post this and we post our cashier data, that credit for that payment is going to wash to that debit line. So the detail will clear and fall off at the end of the month, so that if our last remaining payment is going to carry over to our next month, and that's the only line that will show that's visible, that's still outstanding. So that's how you can make that selection there. And you would just, select your option to print, whether you want to print it to the printer, your accounting copy, or just to paperless.
Thank you, Brittany.
And if you're only paying a portion of that payment, so if we were only paying, Mike, do you want to pull that back up and let's do like a partial payment?
Sure.
So if you go back, another thing is instead of going to the list, you can also hit F3 in that account field, and that will also pull up the list that Mike just selected. So if you go back and, you select our payment, say we're only going to pay $50 of our $317. And if we enter back down and we make our selection for our next item available and you hit OK, the system's going to let you know that the item selected exceed the amount, a partial payment will be applied. So you also can apply partial payments to that if the customer is making payments because it's a large amount. So if you hit OK, that's going to take us back out to the main screen and it's going to apply that $50. So when we post this information and we look at our customer account, we'll see that $50 of that has been applied and there's, the remaining portion left.
Brittany, we had a question come in about how to add cash deposits to the bank deposit. Is that something that we can go over?
Have Mike go ahead and, yep. So if you exit back out, you'll see where cash will now display on the deposit slip because he didn't do an entry for cash. So if you do print deposit slip again, and you change your date ranges to back to be for your filter, because you did do a cash payment, right?
We did do a cash payment, but I don't have cash selected to appear on my deposit. So if I want to do that, what I'll do is I'll come into system setup. And then this is where I'll check this box right here that says include cash on the deposit slip. So now whenever I go to run my deposit, and we'll go back here. So now that's going to show any cash that was taken in. It's going to include it on the deposit slip in addition to all of my checks. So there looks like there's been several cash payments made over the last day here that we've now included.
Yep. And that is how you would see that information. And that's ultimately going to be preference. There are some dealers who enjoy printing this report from the system, but then there are also others that still like to, you fill out your copy that you have that you take to the bank and provide them with that information.
And then once you've done your daily summary, so we'll go back and we'll run that again just to kind of show those new transactions that we've applied and where they land on the daily summary. So now we're going to see everything that's come over. So we have those payments that were received from Tag Motors right here. We have everything else, including the deposit from Robert on his vehicle. So all of that's now gone into the daily summary. So what we're going to do at this point, in order to get those transactions over into accounting, is we're going to update the daily receipts. So that's the trigger that's now going to take all of the money, and it's going to prompt us to ensure that we've printed our daily summary. So it gives you the little warning there. But now it's going to take everything and it's going to send it over to accounting so that it can be posted. So now again, I can control whose information I want to send over, or if I want to send over all of the receipts, I'll select all operators. We'll click on update, and then all of that information now flows over into accounting for me. So if we go into accounting, one of the things you'll find is that whenever you issue those cash receipts and you come into your journal entries here, when you come down to post entries to journals, you're going to see this cashier button show in red. So that indicates, hey, we've taken in money through the cashiering module, and that money now needs to be posted and accounted for. So we're going to select the button here. We're going to click OK, and we're going to post to March. And then that's going to bring the money that was collected over into the general ledger for me. So now what I can do is when I go to do my deposit, I can come right here. I can come into deposit EFTs. And then this is where I can come in. I can actually print a copy of my cash clearing list right here, and I can see the funds that were taken in. So there's our deposits. This is all the cash that was taken in as far as the vehicle deposits, as far as the checks from Tag Motors. And then when I click on this button, this is what's going to actually do the deposit for me. So it's taking that money, it's crediting my clearing account, it's debiting my bank account. And so now I'll be able to post that transaction, which is going to ultimately put that money in my bank account for me with an Autosoft. So at this point, we've gone through everything from a content standpoint as far as utilizing Cashier for showing how the repair orders flow through. Counter tickets work in the exact same manner. You would invoice over to Cashier. You would be able to receipt the counter ticket the same way that you would a repair order, have the capability to split the payment, split the charge out on 3 separate cards if necessary, and even apply credit card fees. We've also gone over how to generate the daily summary and then ultimately send those transactions processed through Cashier over into account. And before we wrap up, Brittany, is there anything else that you might like to add regarding what we've covered today?
Yeah, so one thing that I would like to point out, so when you're updating the cash receipts from Cashier, that takes only the receipts that you've processed and update them over to the flow that was just shown. If when it's for repair orders and counter tickets, the end of day updates need to be ran so that information comes over into integrated entries for you to post your repair orders and your counter tickets.
Excellent. Thank you, Brittany.
You're welcome.
This is for Michael and Brittany. We've had an influx of questions come through the chat line and also in the Q&A section. If we can just address these one by one. Some of them, I believe, have been somewhat answered, maybe not in full. But I'll just start with a question from Cindy. Can you show how to take a payment on an RO? And I know you went through that screen already, Michael, but like she asked, like for a prepayment for work.
So I would assume you're referring to like a deposit on
like a deposit on a repair order. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to rely on Brittany to kind of walk us through that type of transaction. Brittany, is that something you might be able to help us out with?
Sorry, I was reading one of the questions. Can you tell me what our transaction was again? I apologize. I was intrigued by the questions.
How to take a payment on an RO, but more like a deposit on a repair.
So if you know that your deposit's going to, say you're doing an engine job and you know that it's going to be costly and you want to just initiate a payment, I would go into cash receipts and I would go into customer receipts. And for the account, if the customer doesn't have an accounts receivable and you're going to allow them to charge, then I would first start by setting up the accounts receivable. So, or if they already have an account, then you would go to account. You can hit F3 or click on the list. So if you would like to select as a customer. All right, so then that pulls up their information, and then go ahead and go over and let's say they're putting a cash payment down of $250. So you would fill this out and then go ahead and enter on through. So it's going to pull up the accounts receivable. We have nothing to select, so this account is set up to be detail forward. You can hit back and then go ahead and you can enter or click down to the payment so it doesn't click OK. Go ahead and bypass the payment line. Yep.
Okay.
And hit enter. So we want to make sure, go ahead and fill in your 250 there. You would do that as your credit.
Oops.
So click back on, yep. And just take it out of there and put it in as the credit amount. And so what this will do is this will credit the customer's account that $250. So you're taking that deposit in and you're applying it to their accounts receivable. This is how I would handle that situation if they're putting a deposit on a repair order that hasn't been finished yet. And it's going to be something that they're going to make payments on over time and they want to start that process. So when you hit print, you can, make your printer selection however you need to. Paperless, accounting, email. I would go ahead and hit paperless for now. But once this cashier data is updated, then that's going to apply that $250 to that customer's account. If you aren't going to use accounts receivable and you're using maybe a different receivable account, then you're just going to want to use that. And at that point, you can hit enter where it has account and the word cash will generate. And then you can fill out the customer's information that way. So it just depends on what type of account you're going to put that money to from when you close out your repair order. Did that answer?
I think
did that answer
answered
the question?
I think it did.
All right.
Yeah, and I want to remind everybody on the webinar today, this will be reposted. And so if you missed something that has already been covered by Michael and Brittany, we're going to repost it. Plus, you will get an email shortly after the conclusion of this webinar with a link to view the recording right away. So keep that in mind for those of you who may have joined late or had to step away. You'll be able to rewatch this. Another question that came in, how do you add service discounts without sending the customer back to service?
So what you can do is whenever you're cashing out a repair order, we do have the capability here when you go into repair orders and you select from the RO list. So if I select Angela's repair order here, down here is the discounts button at the bottom. So if I did want to apply the discount at this point in time, when I'm accepting the payment from the customer, rather than doing it on the service side, case in point, you have that situation where a customer comes in with their coupon when they go to pay, rather than dropping it off with the advisor when they first come in with the vehicle. This is where you can come in and you can apply the discount here right from within the cashiering module. So it would function the same as if it was being applied over on the service side.
Perfect. Plenty of other questions still coming in, so we'll try and get to these as quickly as possible. When they have a warranty RO that was closed in service and then they need to adjust the payment because there was some customer pay, for some reason it says they're not allowing us to put a check number in the screen. Is the grayed out? Is that something that's due to settings, or would that be a functionality? Let me go over that again. So when they have a warranty repair order that was closed in service and then they need to adjust the payment because there was some customer pay, it says that they're not being allowed to input the check number on the screen. It's grayed out. And that may be something we just need to take offline.
That one we might need to look at that because I'm not, and I have a warranty RO that was closed in service and I need to adjust the payment. Are you adjusting the payment? And I would say let's take that one offline just so we can see the workflow of what's being done. Maybe there is just a piece that's missing because I'm assuming that it's coming into the screen that we're showing right now. Because you should be able, if you made a selection on a repair order and you say you accidentally put it as cash and it needs to be changed to check, as long as that repair order hasn't been updated, end of day hasn't been ran, you should still be able to come back in and change the payment selection.
So that question was from Bethany. So I'm going to go ahead and Bethany, I'll take your name down and we can reach out to you and get you an answer there. Okay. Brittany, do you want to go ahead and address the next one there?
So are there any plans to update and fix buy here, pay here? That one?
Mm-hmm.
As of right now, no, there is not future plans, but that doesn't mean that, we're not open to discussion about how you're using buy here, pay here so that we can, understand the use case for you.
Okay. Next
You want
question
me to
was,
keep going down?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, just keep going down the list.
When can you change receivables from balance to detail forward? I would always suggest when the account balance is 0, that's going to be important. That's the best practice, and to do it at the end of the month. So if you get the account balance zeroed out and you're getting right before you're getting ready to close and you want to make that transition, that is the best time to do that. That would be for payables and receivables. From the cashier screen, we can only process credit cards, not checks or cash. We have to use cash receipts to process those. Do you mean that you have to use cash receipts in accounting to process those, Sherry?
Or are they not able to access those as a payment method for repair orders and counter tickets?
Right, but you should have access to all of them. Right. Yeah, there's nothing that we have that dictates that.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Sherry, if you want to elaborate on that in the comments section, then we can address that further.
Next, if we transition an AR account from balance forward to detail forward, cannot be applied mid-month. Again, best to implement at the end of the month. And that's because when you change from balance forward to detail, it's usually a smooth transition because then you're just going to, have that one line. But if you're going to do it the opposite way, take something from detail forward to balance forward, the system warns you about clearing that history. So that's why it's best to do that at the end of the month. We answered the discount question. When you want to print accounting and customer copies, do you do that from one screen or do you have to go back and print from one? So you can print from Cashier, like when you're in a cash receipt, you can set it up so that you can print your, if you hit print, what that does is it gives you your customer copy, your accounting copy, and if you have it on for a file copy, it'll give you that. If you print accounting, it's just going to give you your accounting and your file copy. I believe it gives you both. Paperless is paperless, so it doesn't give you anything. And if you have the email option, then it's going to send the email. Inside of counter tickets and repair orders, it would apply to that same way based off of how you have it set up in the system setup piece of Cashier. So you would be able to do, customer, if you hit print, it's going to execute all the copies that you have set up to go. And when you do a counter ticket, you get the option of the counts right then and there. I think.
There's a
Maybe it's
question that a few people have already liked or made an emoji on. Is there a way to cash out two ROs at the same time with the integrated credit card processing?
There is from the repair order screen, there is not. You would have to do one at a time. If you're doing a customer's paying on account, then yes. If you have it set up as detailed and you wanted to clear both of those, then yes, you can make those selections at the same time, but that's only if it's on payment on account.
While we're on the similar topic, can those ROs be reopened once sent to cashier?
Yes, they can. So anytime a repair order gets sent over to cashier, what you can do, and this is something that gets done in service, and this is permission based. So whoever goes into repair orders and utilities here has the ability to change that repair order back to active. And you can come in, you can enter the RO number, or you can select right here from the list to take that repair order back over into service so that any adjustments can be made to it.
Brittany, it looks like Sherry followed up on her comment. She said that when we cashier ROs at the end of the day, that it only allows them to do credit card payments, and then they have to go through cash receipts to cashier the checks in cash. And perhaps that's a setting.
I would like to see that process to see maybe what's happening there. That one's going to be
okay.
Yeah, then I need to actually see. I'm going through this too. It's because they're closing the RO and not invoicing to cashier. Oh, that could be it. Yeah. What Marissa answered. So if your service department does, when they're closing out repair orders, if they just close the repair order and bypass the cashier process, then those will not show in there. So they're just printing and closing, and then the end of day update will push those over to accounting. So that could be that, what Marissa's talking about for Sherry. Yes. So you did not answer the discount question that I asked. Is there ability to discount an individual line item on a RO from the cashier screen? Say that just have a 10% off oil change, but there is 2 more line items on the RO for brakes and alignment. Can I do just a 10% discount on the oil change line item only?
Yes. So that's something that's ultimately set up within your discounts. So you'll have the options whenever you go in, and this is the same in service as it would be in cashier. So this discount by repair option is only going to discount a certain line. So like if I wanted to discount only this line, I would want to select from down here, because then it would apply the discount to only that line on the RO versus these discounts up top, which would apply the discount to the entire repair order.
Perfect. I think that's more clarity that he was looking for. So thank you.
Perfect.
Would you?
Go ahead,
there's another question. How can we close a warranty and send the customer pay to cashier as well? Do you think you can show that example?
Yeah. So over in service, if we hop back over into service, this is where we go into repair orders and review and print. So when I come to this screen and I select a repair order, and I click on print here, I'm going to have a couple different options. So the first option we talked about is this, the invoice RO. So that's going to send everything on the repair order over to cashier so that the payment can be accepted. This option down here is in that situation where you have a repair order with both customer pay and warranty work on the same RO, and you want to leave the warranty work open, but still be able to process the payment for the customer pay portion. So again, you have the same option to print the customer copy of the repair order from at this stage, but what it's only going to do is it's only going to send over the customer pay portion of the repair order so that the payment can be collected on what the customer is responsible for. So if you have a customer coming in and they're getting an oil change, a tire rotation, and a recall taken care of, and you want to collect the payment for the oil change and the tire rotation, this option enables you to do that. So this will allow you to send those job lines over to Cashier so that you can receive the payment for them. Meanwhile, it still leaves the warranty work for the recall open.
Okay, another question was, how can they close warranty and send customer pay back to cashiering as well?
So that would just be the previous option, to where rather than selecting the invoice CP, that is going to then take the entire repair order and send it over to Cashier. So then I would process the payment in the same manner that I would if that repair order was customer pay only. So I'd go to repair orders, I'd be able to pull up the RO from my list. Obviously, any warranty lines would show here, but there would be no payment responsible for them unless there's, of course, a deductible that would show up here. That could be added here if necessary, and then you'd be able to process the payment for the customer pay portion.
Okay, we'll go for 2 more questions and then we'll start to wrap up. There was a question that came in: can a customer pay an open RO and also on their account in one screen without having to charge the open RO to the AR account? I'll restate that again. Can a customer pay an open RO on their and also on their account in one screen without having to charge the open RO to their AR account?
They would just change the payment to cash, because if you create a repair order and you have a receivable set up, it would automatically default it to a receivable as a payment for the repair order. You could then change that to cash on the service side, and then it would enable you to process that as a cash, whether it's cash, check, or credit card transaction, rather than applying the payment to the accounts receivable.
Okay.
But to me, that question almost sounds like they want to pay for 2 different things. They want to pay on their account at the same time while paying
I think
for a
that's
current
the
open
intent.
RO.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Might have to take that as an aside.
Okay. Cassie, I'm taking your name
Yeah,
down too.
I think that needs to go. I think I want to say I could figure out a way to make it work. Sure. But I would have to think about how that flow would go. My immediate answer is no, because if you invoice your repair order to Cashier, you would have to make that payment inside of here, and payment on account would go. I mean, I can find a creative workaround to do it. Yes, there's that answer. But and I could give you that creative workaround if you'd like to actually go through that scenario outside of this call. We could go through and do that.
Okay. I took her name down, Brittany, so we can revisit that. Question that, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I did reply to some answers in the chat to questions. I think there was a question that how should ACH deposits be handled? I said the deposit EFT screen is where you would want to handle those. And then there was a question about if a payment was applied to the wrong AR, if you're able to void that. And you just have to make sure you void that receipt before Cashier is updated, and then you could do that. So can we go through a quick how to void a cash receipt that was processed?
Sure.
While you're setting that up, Michael, just a reminder that this is being recorded and it will be rebroadcast. So you'll get an email sent to you and you'll be able to rewatch this. You can share it with others in your dealership, and it'll also be posted to Autosoft University at the conclusion of the webinar. I think there was quite a few people that either had to jump out of the webinar for work-related things or had to leave altogether. So we'll make sure that everybody has the opportunity to see the recording.
So if we're going to void, if you exit out of there for me.
Okay. Whoops. Oh, for some reason. Oh, that's wonderful. Let me go ahead and get this started back up here.
And I can talk through it without you showing the screen. So what you would do is as you enter into cash receipts and say you use your receipt number was 200,000. What we would do is when you access the cash receipt screen, there is the option for the receipt number. Initially, that receipt number is blank because when you hit print, the system will generate you that receipt. So the receipts are pre-generated. And what you would do to void a receipt that you've already processed is you would type that receipt number in at the top and then hit enter. And the system's going to ask you if you want to reprint it or if you'd like to void it. And then that's when you would hit void. And then you would be able to reprocess your new receipt to the right accounts receivable account. And if cashier has already been updated, at that point, you would want to go into journal entries, journal utilities, reverse a posted document, pull up your receipt and reverse it out that way. And then you could either make a general journal entry or you could go back into cashier and reprocess that entry.
There was a question that came in that I think a lot of people may be considering. It says that they've been thinking about adding credit card fees to their card payments. Are there best rules to follow, or is that perhaps a dealer by dealer scenario?
I would say it's going to be dealer by dealer. And then also you would want to make sure for your state regulations how much you're allowed to charge for fees because each state may be different. So, and there is a disclaimer in for that fee section specifically about that.
Perfect. These have been great questions. So thank you everybody for asking these. I've loved how interaction between those on the call have been helping out too, because there's been many of you who have helped to answer questions to others who have had a similar situation where you've known how to fix it. So it's been wonderful seeing that interaction and dialogue going on. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap up for today. A reminder that everything will be reposted so you can watch it again. And right now on your screen, you're seeing there's an email address and a phone number. If you would like to get in touch with your client success manager, either to set you up for Autosoft University to begin learning about the different areas of Autosoft and see some of those helpful videos and tutorials, that number on the screen and that email address will point you in the right direction if you do not know who your client success manager is. So please utilize that to get in touch with them. Also, there's a QR code. We love your feedback. This webinar actually came from a suggestion from one of the users in a previous webinar. So that's how we came along doing this cashiering webinar. So please scan that QR code, fill out that survey, let us know what you thought about this one and suggestions for future webinars as well, so that we can help you be better users of Autosoft. So whether you've been using Autosoft for 20 years or just 2 days, we want to make sure that we're helping you and giving you the best resources possible, which is where that Autosoft University will come in. So again, thank you for joining us today. We look forward to connecting with you in the future. Have a fantastic day and take care.